It was apparent from early on that she would be one of those types, blessed with the familial wealth to afford the accoutrement of each hobby, the prerequisite purchases and go-alongs, though too excitable to ever follow through and become exemplary or professional in any one craft. The bespoke, hand-carved dollhouse she asked for one year at Christmas, which, by March, sat languishing in the attic. In the spring light, its paint glimmering and beautiful, and for decades after, untouched by human hands. There were the leather harness and jodhpurs, the Arabian mare she took lessons on for a year, which was then left to sit in his stall, eating up money and suffering from arthritic joints. The private rural college education, that half-decade spent outdoors, finding herself among the forests and slopes of the nearby countryside. Her classes left empty, teachers confused, the spines of her books uncracked. The degree never completed. It was self-indulgent and useless anyways. The ring that she bought in perverse anticipation, no relationship ever consummated, the gold found bare and blank and unused in the house of her choosing. There was the bed, bought in the hopes of achieving a decent, refreshing rest. She developed a hopeless insomnia almost immediately, nights spent at the dinner table rereading the day's news over endless cups of tea. Finally, there was the coffin, her last hopeful hobby, the extra expense made to have the box bedded and lacquered. Her only desire was to one day pass away. Alas, her particular predilection proved stronger than death, for even here she could not take the purchase to completion. It has gone unused ever since, and she has lived forever. I opened my eyes and followed a shadow along the ceiling as it faded into the light fixture above the bed. Jess's breathing back rubbed against me in time. I stared at the fixture for a while. My mind was going half speed, trying to figure what it was. There was a pulsing around the back of my knees and near my hairline, and even though I was so warm under the sheets, a chill ran through me and my body's bones. I went to reach out for Jess, but something stopped me. I wanted to touch her, to wake her up and see if she could see anything, but part of me held me back, held me from grabbing her, held my hand. If I woke her and she looked and she saw, with her witch's eyes, the crystal smoke soul above us. It was in the fixture, I knew that to be true, but the fixture's butter would stand and solid stand. Kicking my legs for attention came out as only a small sweep of my toes, this sorry, muffled violence. Kicking harder made this into a slow waving motion, the uncut nails catching on the crushing fabric. Greater force resulted in a slower sweep. The fixture's insides crept about with a squid swallow. I spooked out the window, but a team of sewer workers had covered the outside in sheep's cornea and egg silk, all mazes black in a shifting tile landscape. Errens came over, woke me up around 11. When he pulled into the drive, Errens' car made a scraping sound, like the gravel was running away from his car's crushing rubber. It was his car too, so really it was his crushing rubber. I didn't know it was Errens at first. I heard him, but I stayed in that part sleep until Errens got out and up and banged on the front door. I took a while to get up. I put on those canvas pants and my old San Francisco sweater, and I opened the door for him. I could see into the indent fully when I came to the top of the rise. It was something like a pit, 10 feet deep and just as wide, tapering down into a small area, down there like a pool of black liquid. Errens looked over at me. "What is that? Is that mud or what?" Errens looked back at the puddle and shook his head no. He dropped the rock down the side of the pit. It bounced heavy once or twice down the side of the pit. When the rock hit the puddle, the surface shimmered like wind on an oil slick. The rock did not sink, though, not at first. The stuff down there looked liquid, but viscous, like pitch or fresh asphalt. After a few seconds, the rock began to sink sort of. One side sank, but the other side came up, like it was just turning, sort of like it were on a spit, and as it did, the side that turned up was not mineral. It wasn't rock, but pink and pocked, like bird's flesh. It kept turning, slow but steady. The motion didn't seem to be natural work, and it kept turning until the whole portion facing us had this flesh over it. It was the same size and shape of the rock, but pink and bristled and moving slightly. Not turning, but bobbing on the surface, breathing. The liquid did not stick to its outside. The stuff pulled away as it turned, and the turning rock floated high on the pool. Errens looked at me. His eyes were wide. Go touch it. They never knew Keely went to church. Unexplained disappearances were common enough behavior for any of them that no one took notice when she was gone almost every Sunday morning. Most of the time, everyone was asleep or hungover anyway. Perhaps in an effort to balance out the more liberal and sinful tendencies of her behavior, she frequented a particularly conservative outpost, 45 minutes outside of Westham, whose flock was overwhelmingly composed of those on the tumultuous edge between middle age and elderhood, the women uniformly fat, the men stringy and hard-eyed. She was always very quiet, sat in the front, yet never took communion, just watched, basked. She began to go regularly, but if asked, and she never was, Keely would have been able to provide a rational reason for why she went. And that's the hard part, right? We are so cut in our grooves that this behavior looked totally natural. It doesn't look like madness or addiction or anything like that little fish swimming toward the lure. It's too subtle, too normal, like you could be doing it right now, getting sucked into the gaping maw, the weird net, and not even know it. Just going along and doing something you think you love, but really you're getting sucked on. Getting eaten, really, by one of these things. And of course everyone says, well, where is it? Show it to us. Why can't we smell or taste or talk with it? And that's like telling the little fish to speak with the anglerfish, or telling the caterpillar to talk with its cordyceps fungus. It's just unthinkable. It's not that we're speaking different languages, it's that these are entirely separate modes of being. You get close enough to talk to it, and it'll just snap you up. That's just what it does. It may be able to outsmart us, but that doesn't mean it's smart enough to talk with us. And people say, well, where are all the bodies? Where are the sucked out husks of the people these things have been feeding on? And they hear, you are the husk, half sucked out. You are the barely breathing carcass. Rural Information by Sam Moss.